It all began with a single forgotten magazine, a small page printed in 1997 that would one day shake the carefully crafted image of one of the most talked about women in the world. The issue was from Seventeen magazine, an ordinary teen publication known for its beauty tips and celebrity dreams, but this one had something extraordinary hidden in plain sight. Among its pages, there was a short feature on a young woman named Meghan Markle. It listed her as an aspiring actress, full of ambition and drive, someone ready to take on the world, and right next to her name, it said she was 21 years old. That one number, 21, seemed harmless then, but years later, it became a spark that would ignite an entire debate. Because if Meghan really was 21 inches 1,997, that meant she couldn't have been born in 1981, the year her official biography has repeated again and again. No, that would place her closer to 1,975 or 1,976, 5 or 6 years older than the story the world had been told. When author and biographer Tom Bower came across that magazine entry decades later, he didn't see a typo. He saw a trail, one that led straight into the heart of the Meghan Markle myth. And once he started following it, he realized it wasn't just about age. It was about control. It was about image. It was about how one woman learned to rewrite her life, one polished detail at a time. Bower wasn't just any writer. He had a reputation for cutting through the glamour that surrounds the famous. His books on Britain's most powerful figures had earned him both respect and controversy. And when he turned his attention to Meghan Markle, he treated her story like an investigation. He began digging, comparing school records, graduation photos, casting sheets, and interviews. And the deeper he went, the more the dates refused to align. According to official records, Meghan was born on the 4th of August, 1981, in Los Angeles, a bright and curious child raised in a creative family. Her father, Thomas Markle, worked in television production, and her mother, Doria Ragland, was a yoga instructor and social worker. Everything about her early life seemed well documented until Bower looked closer, because buried beneath the surface were small inconsistencies. Classmates remembered her as being slightly older than others in her year. Acting colleagues recalled her speaking of early experiences that didn't quite fit the timeline. And then there was the 1,997 magazine, the single thread that seemed to unravel everything. For Thomas Markle, her father, the confusion wasn't as shocking. Over the years, he had made comments that hinted at a longer career than Meghan's public record showed. He remembered her starting in acting earlier, spending years trying to break into the industry before she landed her big role in Suits. He remembered supporting her financially well before she was supposed to have graduated from Northwestern University. For him, it was just the reality of a daughter chasing her dream. But for the rest of the world, those comments suddenly sounded like pieces of a puzzle that didn't fit the official picture. And for Bower, they were confirmation that this wasn't a coincidence. He began piecing together the two timelines. One told the story of a young woman who graduated college in her early 20s, broke into acting soon after, and by 30 was on the brink of royal fame. The other painted a picture of a woman who had been quietly struggling for much longer, who had faced rejection, reinvention, and the brutal pressure of Hollywood far earlier than anyone realized. The question became not what is Meghan's real age, but why was it changed at all? In Hollywood, youth isn't just desirable, it's currency. A few years younger can mean the difference between being cast as the romantic lead or being overlooked entirely. For women, especially women of color, the window of opportunity is often shorter, the competition sharper, the pressure heavier. Maybe that was the real reason. Maybe it wasn't deception, it was strategy. Meghan had always been more than an actress. She was her own brand long before the word became fashionable. Every interview, every public appearance, every photograph felt deliberate, controlled, curated. Even her handwriting and personal notes, neat, precise, confident, reflected that same polish. So it's not hard to imagine that age, like everything else, could be adjusted to fit the story she wanted to tell. A story not of struggle and survival, but of perfect timing. Yet, what made this story more intriguing wasn't the possible change, it was the silence that followed it. When Tom Bower's findings spread across media circles, there was no response. Not from Meghan, not from her representatives, not from 17 magazine itself. No correction, no clarification, no denial, just silence. And that silence became louder than any statement could have been. In the world of celebrity, silence is a form of control. It creates mystery, and mystery fuels fascination. The less you say, the more people wonder. Meghan, whether by choice or instinct, understood that better than anyone. As the speculation grew, fans began digging on their own. Online forums and social media pages filled with amateur detectives comparing old photos, looking for signs of aging or inconsistencies in her school years. Some found evidence yearbooks that seemed off by a year or two. Others argued it was nothing but rumor. But everyone agreed on one thing. It was strange that no one had addressed it directly. The story began to evolve from curiosity to conspiracy. Was it possible that Meghan, who built her image on authenticity and empowerment, had quietly rewritten her past to stay relevant? Or was it just another example of how women in the public eye are judged for something as meaningless as a number? Tom Bower, in his calm but pointed style, never claimed to have absolute proof. What he exposed was a pattern, tiny contradictions that, when added together, created a bigger question mark. He suggested that Meghan's entire rise had been shaped by an extraordinary attention to presentation. The way she spoke, the way she smiled, even the way she paused in interviews, it all carried precision. This wasn't someone stumbling through fame. This was someone managing it, directing it, owning it. And maybe that's why the age mystery resonates so deeply. Because whether the magazine was wrong or not, it revealed something true about her character. She understands power better than most people ever will. Power isn't about shouting the truth, it's about deciding which truth to show. As Bower traced her early Hollywood years, he found other subtle edits in her story. Small resume changes, slightly adjusted timelines, vague references to roles or experiences that couldn't be perfectly verified. None of it was scandalous. But together, they formed a pattern, a life edited like a film, each frame carefully chosen. By the time Meghan met Prince Harry, the world saw a confident, modern woman whose life seemed perfectly aligned with destiny. Few realized how many versions of that life might have existed before. When the two timelines, 1981 and 1975, are placed side by side, they tell two very different stories. One is the fairy tale of the bright, young actress who conquered Hollywood, then the monarchy with charm and grace. The other is the story of a woman who had already lived through disappointment, rejection, and reinvention before stepping into the spotlight. The younger Meghan's story is about arrival. The older Meghan's story is about endurance, and that might be the real secret behind her rise. Because endurance always makes for a stronger narrative, it just doesn't always photograph as well. Even now, years later, the question lingers. Was the magazine wrong? Or was it a glimpse into a truth quietly edited out of history? Maybe we'll never know. But the fascination remains, not because people want to tear her down, but because the mystery fits the person. Meghan Markle has always been a woman surrounded by contradictions, private but public, vulnerable yet powerful, loved and criticized in equal measure. Every time the world thinks it understands her, she changes again. And that, perhaps, is why the age story won't die. It's not about numbers, it's about transformation. It's about how far someone is willing to go to shape their own destiny. Maybe that's what makes Meghan so compelling. Because whether she's 44 or 49, 41 or 47, the truth is that she's built something far rarer than perfection. She's built control. Control over her image, her story, and even her silence. In an age where every secret gets exposed, Meghan remains an enigma, a woman who understands that the best way to stay talked about is to stay unanswered. The mystery of her real age may never be solved, and maybe that's the point. Maybe she doesn't want it solved. Maybe the truth is less important than the legend she's created. Because in the end, the number on a page doesn't define Meghan Markle. The silence that followed it does, and that silence has power. The kind of power that turns speculation into fascination and fascination into legacy. So maybe the real story isn't whether she's older than we think. Maybe the real story is how brilliantly she's managed to make the world keep guessing. Because in Meghan's world, every detail, every rumor, every unanswered question becomes part of the brand. And when you think about it, that's the ultimate reinvention, not just of a timeline, but of truth itself.